Hey guys, Coach Adam talking to you again today. And today we are reviewing the Clash Championships, which actually should be called the Clash of the Titans, because we have some really cool stories with this one, with Kathy Seitz taking 2 years off, coming back and taking that third place spot, Brittany Gillespie taking the second place spot on her pro debut, and Amy Delgado requalifying and getting to her Olympia qualification for 2023, which is no surprise. I kind of expected that going into it. But let's go ahead and review the top 6 and see what happened at this weekend's Clash Championship. So I wanted to start off by quickly going into the top 6 and kind of go from 6 through 4 quickly and look at 3 through 1. But there's a lot of cool stories with this particular show. You saw some competitors coming back that had long layoffs, 2-year layoffs, 3-year layoffs. You had some really cool stories, pro debuts at this show, and I think that it's important to look at that. But the first one was Priscilla Linebacker. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. But we haven't seen her for a couple years, and she looked really great. And I want to go into her physique first, as she took out that 6th place spot. Now, for those who've been in the game for a long time, know Priscilla's name because she won the 2019 Pittsburgh Pro, which if you guys aren't familiar, the Pittsburgh Pro is a huge show. It's one of the bigger shows of the year. It's J.M. Mannion's show. He always loads it up. It's always a throwdown. It's almost like a Olympia light type of show. You know, you have your Olympia, you have the Arnold, and then you kind of have a tie in between some big shows like the Pittsburgh Pro, the New York Pro, the Tampa, Chicago. They're all kind of in that realm of shows that are high-level shows outside of the Arnold and the Olympia. And you usually get some big names in those. And those are the titles that people want to have. You know, those are the big titles that you want to have in your career. So her winning the Pittsburgh Pro and coming back after a 2-year layoff, everyone was, eagerly anticipating what she was going to bring. And she brought the typical shape that she does bring in. It's an amazing package, really great lines. And there's just a few things that she needs to work on to really push it from 6th place to 1st place. And I think that she actually has potential this year of getting to the Olympia. I don't think there's any issue with her physique right now to get her to the Olympia. Just a couple key things, and it really comes down to just her conditioning. But if we look at her shape, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. Really great shape. I mean, she's got wide shoulders. She's got a tiny waistline, great V-taper, really good lats. She's not opening up her lats, but you see the lat shape, the pretty lat shape. Really awesome glute profile from the front. Like that glute profile from the front is great. And she's doing that while she's showing more of a quad shot. So for her to be able to twist her hips, show a little bit of roundness to the hamstring, show that fullness of the quad without the detail and separation, really, really great front shot. And honestly, from the front, I really don't think she needs to work on her conditioning much at all. Now, when we get to the back, just a tiny bit tighter, and it would have been a game changer for her. I think with this shape and the amount of muscle she has, I don't see her not moving up, 2-3 places if she brought just a slightly tighter package. If you look down here at her lower glute tie-in, if that just came in just a little bit tighter, we're not talking a lot tighter, just a little bit tighter, a little bit less body fat on the glutes here, just a tiniest bit, I think that she'd be there. Now, is there room for improvement in other places? Yeah, but can this physique get her an Olympia qualification this year? I think this physique as is can get her an Olympia qualification with coming in a little bit tighter. So now, during that time frame when she's, competing and getting ready for the Olympia and making improvements, I do think that she can use a little bit more in the shoulders still. I think that her glute fullness is really good, but I think when she loses all the body fat, she's going to need a little bit more, specifically in this glute medius area and also in the tie-in area. When she leans out, that's going to look good. It's going to look good enough to get her the Olympia, but it's not going to be good enough to get her a top 10 in the Olympia as is right now. I think if she gets a little bit of muscle in those key areas, and we're talking sculpting here, we're not talking building like crazy, and she needs to do a whole bunch of work and take 2 more years off. She's done the work. She looks really, really good. Conditioning needs to be a little bit better. She needs to make improvements on some key areas, and this is an Olympia. This physique, this structure is a top 10 Olympia structure. Now it's just putting the fine tuning on everything, getting her posing down, making sure her conditioning is where it needs to be, filling out the glutes in the key areas. But this is a really, really good physique. And I think a lot of people who, haven't been following the sport for a long time probably didn't know her name. But she is an absolute killer, and I think that she has the structure to go very, very far with bringing that right package. And in today's bikini, you have to be 100% perfect to win these shows because the girls have done their homework. The information's out there. They're bringing the packages absolutely perfectly. And so it's just a couple little tweaks to get her to that level, and I think we're going to see it here pretty soon. So I'm excited about seeing her coming back. Hopefully she does a few shows this year, and hopefully we see her climbing to those ranks and winning those first place spots, moving up to, I think she can move up to 3rd in within 2 weeks with her current shape, just tightening it up a little bit. Within 2 weeks, I think I'd see her moving up to second place, third place really quickly here. So I think we need about a month fully for her to win a pro qualification or Olympia qualification, I mean. And we'll see her, I think, at the Olympia in 2023. So thank you for coming back, Priscilla, and keeping this year interesting. And taking 5th place is Emily Frazier. And a lot of you probably are unfamiliar with Emily's name, but Emily is an absolute killer. She is a silent assassin, and a lot of people just don't know who she is. She's very underrated. So why am I saying that she's underrated? Because of the names she's beaten. She's beaten some absolute killers in the sport. In 2020 at the Atlantic Coast Pro, look at the names she's beaten. So she won this show. That was her only pro win, but she beat Daraja Hill. She beat Ashlyn Little. She beat Romina Basualdo. She beat Ellie Fernandez, Marissa Wu. These are all very well-known household bikini names, and she came out on top. But Emily is not a household name, and it's due to her inconsistency. So when she brings the package right, she's an absolute killer. But it always comes down to, is she going to be bringing that package that's beatable, that'll beat almost everyone? I mean, you got to remember, she beat Daraja Hill the year Daraja did really good at the Olympia. She wasn't 4th that year at the Olympia, but we're talking a top 15 girl that she beat. Ashlyn Little, I think that year Ashlyn Little got top 10 at the Olympia. I think she got 7th that year, if I'm not wrong, maybe 8th. Romina, top 10 girl at the Olympia. Ellie Fernandez, another multi-year Olympian. I don't know her placing at the Olympias where she's gotten off the top of my head, but I know she's done decently. Marissa Wu, another Olympian. So it's like, man, she has beaten some absolute killers. So, she is very capable of doing it again. So you see her name come up here and there, but it is inconsistent of how she places. So to go into her consistency, in 2020, she won a show. She was in 2021, she was kind of all over the place. She got 5th at New York. She got 6th at San Antonio. She got 16th at the Olympia. She got, again, 9th at the Hurricane Pro. And then she just took some time off. So we haven't seen her for a couple years. So she comes back. She's a little bit more muscular now. She's a little bit more complete. And she takes 5th at a show with a lot of challenging athletes. So hats off to her. I think we're going to start seeing her again. I hope we start seeing her again. But look at how cool this season is. So I am really excited for this year. This is a hold your hats, exciting type of start to the year. Let's just think about the first show. We have Priscilla coming back after a 2-year layoff. We have Emily coming back after a 2-year layoff. We have Carly Stevenson getting 4th place with her pro debut. We have Kathy Seitz coming back after a 2-year layoff. We have Brittany Gillespie getting 2nd place after her pro debut. And we have Amy, who got 6th at the Olympia last year, winning the show, qualifying for the Olympia again. And we're talking one of the first shows of the season, and this thing's just getting started, So I am really excited for this. This sets up a lot of drama for the year. There's a lot of names that could be great this year that we're going to have to wait and see how they end up doing. But with the physiques that they're bringing this year, I'm really, really excited already because we're seeing kind of different things. We're seeing different looks, different physiques. This show was a muscular girls show. I will say that the girls at this show seriously brought some muscle, and there was no shortage of muscle from Emily at that. So with Emily, she has no shortage of muscle. That is not something that she really needs to work on in any capacity. So the main thing with Emily is not looking too thick and too bulky in key areas like her arms. Her arms, with that vascularity and that overall thickness to her arms, I do think crosses a little bit past the bikini point, and I think that she needs to tone down the arms to really be really competitive against some of these top girls. Now, this show was a bigger girl show. There was a lot of muscle in this show, so she's not going to look so muscular next to these girls. But when she gets next to the more petite girls, she's going to overpower them, and I think it's going to be a little bit too much when you're looking at the arms. So I just think a little bit more balance in terms of the shoulder to arm ratio will really help her. I think that her core can come down. It's a little bit thick in her core. I think that can come down probably an inch or so, not with body fat, but with just, picking the right exercises, eating good foods for a long period of time, working on the digestion of her physique, and bringing that waistline down 1 inch. It'll dramatically change her ratios of shoulder to waist. And if you have the shoulder to waist change by an inch or so, you have the arm coming down, half an inch, maybe 1 inch tops, to bring that ratio, make her shoulders look a little bit bigger. That's going to help a lot with her overall look. Her shoulder to waist ratio will be better. She already has the glute profile. I mean, she's got one of the best glute profiles in bikini right now. Great hamstring roundness, great fullness to the glute. When we look at the back, great fullness to the glute as well. Great tie-ins. There's no separation on the hamstrings. I mean, V-taper is awesome from the back. I don't think she really needs that much work from the back. I do think the medius of her glute can be just a little fuller. You see how there's kind of a little bit of a gap here of muscle. You see kind of the separation line of that glute medius to the remainder of the glute. You see that little kind of separation detail line. This could be a little bit fuller and more complete. But in terms of overall size to the glute, she really doesn't need any more overall size. It's just this key area needs to be filled out, and everything else is there. The tie-ins look great. They're not fully etched in, but they're there. The hamstring looks really good. There's really not a whole lot of work to do. Now, overall presentation-wise, I think the hair can be a little bit tighter. I think it could be a little bit better on the hair. You're seeing all those individual strands all the way down. I think that could be a little bit cleaned up. But honestly, she did a great job, and it's just fine-tuning for her at this point. This is, when you look at this, and this is 5th place, this is a really high-level show. So just some small things for her to go a long way, and I'm very excited about seeing this one continuing on. But those little tweaks will have her ramp up in the division really, really quickly, and hopefully get some more consistency out of her. Because I think one of the issues with her and her consistency is going to be her overall size and overpowering a lot of these girls in those smaller shows. Like, when you see numbers like that where she's going up and down, there's something that some judges aren't agreeing with, and there's something that some judges are agreeing with, and you have to find that middle ground of what they'll like. So really happy to see her coming back, really happy to see her with this much muscle. But yeah, tone it down in the key areas and change just a tiny bit to go a long way. And taking 4th place, pro debut, Carly Stevenson, who won her pro card at Nationals last year, making her pro debut, and what an impactful pro debut it was, taking 4th place in a major show. Clash is a big show, guys. It's a real show. There's some real talent that comes there. You've seen Lauren Dennemiller win it, Ashlyn win it, Ashley Cotwalser win it. So this is a real heavy hitter show. So looking at her overall physique, I think she's got a really great physique, and there's just some fine tuning that needs to happen with her physique. Couple of things. One, control the hair better. If it takes you another swipe to get this hair off your shoulder, and you did your first hair swipe and there's still some left and you feel it, if you're a competitor and you feel that hair and it's in the way like that one is, it's okay. Take another swipe at it. Get that hair out of the way. Make your presentation where it needs to be. You can also see it happening here on her back shoulder. You can't even see her back shoulder. You can't see any development of her other delt. Her lower back, her hair is touching her glutes on her lower back, not seeing the lower back and not making the glute profile show the projection of the glute the way that you'd want to see it. So you're seeing a lot of little amateur things that she can fix right away to make a major impact. Would this have moved her up in placings? Potentially. I mean, the judges literally cannot judge her from the back. You can't. How do you judge someone's V-taper and rear delts from the back? How do you judge their lower back conditioning from here? You just can't. It's just not possible. So would it have helped her move up? I don't know. It's hard to say. I didn't see how the whole show went down, but that's something you got to control, and that's just a very easy thing. Don't have the hair so wide, and just control it better. Just style it a little bit different, cut it a little bit shorter, and it's going to be a lot better for you for your overall presentation. Remember, this is bikini. This is not bodybuilding. This is bikini. Everything matters. So when we talk about, you even smiling on stage matters. Bodybuilding is from the neck down. They don't care if you got facial hair, if your haircut's terrible, if they don't care about any of that. They care only about the body. But in bikini, it's a fitness model contest. Okay. So remember that. Fitness model contest. So when you're thinking, oh, should I try this? If it's a question you have to ask yourself, should I try it? Because it's so different. And you're asking yourself, I wonder if I should try this. And maybe you're like a girl that says, I'm just going to be me and do my hair as a whatever, right? Like a mohawk or something. It's a fitness model contest, probably not going to work, right? So these little things, control them. Everything matters. Just think of like a beauty pageant with muscle. That's what this is. So little things like that matter. Presentation matters. Her overall makeup, tan, hair, jewelry, like all of it is really nicely put together. It's just the thickness of the hair and the length of the hair is the only issue with her. The suit cut, everything's great. So I don't want to sound like I'm knocking her. It's just that's a big oversight for the pro league. So looking at her overall physique, really great physique. Crazy good V-taper from the front. I wish I could see her V-taper from the back, but I just can't. But really, really good V-taper from the front. Wide shoulders. Again, this shortens up the shoulder width. You can't see it so well with this hair in the way. But if you see this shoulder here, really, really great shoulders. Round, full shoulders without too much detail and without any, real separation in those shoulders. Really great oblique line. One thing I'll say is I would still like to see a little bit of muscle here, like a little bit of a hint of abs. This is a very flat stomach, but I'm not seeing any of the abs. I'd like to see just a tiny bit of the abs. Now, when I'm looking at her from the back, conditioning is really, really good from the back, from the front. Everything is where it needs to be conditioning-wise. I don't think she needs to be any tighter with her conditioning. It's pretty much spot on. but the overall fullness of the glutes is lacking a little bit. She's going to need a little bit more fullness of her glutes if she's going to win a pro show in 2023. And I think that that's something that she's going to need to work on and before she competes again, or, if she wants to keep competing again, whatever, but she's not going to be winning a show until she fills out these glutes just a little bit more. Again, in this key area here, and really the whole glute needs just a little bit more size. The whole hamstring needs a little bit more size. You're starting to see some detail and separation, but you're not seeing that full round, softer hamstring. You're seeing like a harder, denser, smaller hamstring without the full roundness. So the whole backside, a little bit more in the glutes, a little bit more in the hamstrings. The upper body's pretty much there, besides the little bit in the abs that I'd like to see. So a tiny bit, just some presentation stuff, hair, makeup, all that. It's where it needs to be besides the control of the width of the hair. Everything's there, tiny bit of muscle, and you could see her winning a show. I'm thinking it's probably going to be towards the end of the year if she does win a show, because she does need more size to be really competitive in the pro league. So really great pro debut, especially considering she's lacking in some key areas. I expect her to be, consistently in that 3rd through 7th place. Now, if she takes some time and builds those areas, I could see her winning first towards the end of the year. And next up, taking the 3rd place spot was Kathy Seitz. Kathy's been away for 2 years. She won her pro card in 2021. She did Janet Leigh-Hughes Battle of the Bodies in 2021 after her. That is her pro debut. Ended up in 16th place, took a couple years off, and is making her 2023 debut here, doing really good, taking that 3rd place spot. Now, going into Kathy's physique. Now, Kathy is probably the only petite girl in the top 5 lineup. She's a little bit more petite. She did get overpowered with the muscle surrounding her at this show, all the way from Priscilla all the way up to Amy, just completely, dwarfing her in terms of muscle fullness and muscle size. And I think that's really what she needs. When I see her physique, still needs a good amount more muscle. This is one of those physiques where I think that a lot of the presentation had a lot to do with it. If you look at her physique versus physique, I would actually have Priscilla beating her in this show, and I would have Priscilla moving up, at least a couple spots higher when she's 3rd. So overall presentation, we're not seeing the whole picture. We're not seeing how she presented herself on stage. Maybe she's really, really good on stage. But in terms of overall muscle and fullness, that's where she's lacking, especially in today's bikini world with how full the girls are. So one of the key things that she's going to really need to work on is her shoulders. You see how her shoulders here, and in bikini, we're saying we don't want any shoulder capping, but every girl has shoulder cap, so that rule should just be completely gone, honestly, at this point. I don't know why they say that. You've been seeing these already just a couple reviews in. Every girl has shoulder caps. Now, she needs a little bit more in the shoulders to even start getting that full cap. You're seeing a tiny bit of roundness, but needs more overall roundness, and she needs more roundness without that overall detail and separation and graininess. You're seeing a lot of vascularity out of her on those shoulders, but you're not seeing the overall fullness and roundness. You want to see that soft, pretty muscle in bikini, and this muscle is looking a little bit harder, but it's not really round yet. So I think that she needs a little bit more fullness to her shoulders. She needs a little bit more fullness to her lats. Now, she's got a crazy waistline. She's got a crazy structure in terms of her glutes, her glute profile to waist ratio, and she's got a wide clavicle structure. So she does have a God-given structure. You could see it here, that wide shoulder, that small V taper down to a small waist, and decent set hips. Her hips aren't wide set. They're just kind of regular set hips. And that's what's going to hurt her when she gets next to the bigger girls, when she gets next to the Amy's, the Jennifers, the Laura Lees. Her hips are just not set that wide, and that's really going to hurt her next to those girls. So that's where structure becomes such an issue in bikini, especially in the pro league. It's like, okay, you got a pro card, but are you structurally capable of beating these girls, even if you added all the muscle? And in her case, it's going to be really, really, really difficult hill to climb because her hips just aren't set that wide. So she's going to need to build a lot of muscle to be able to hang next to those girls, or she's going to keep getting dwarfed next to them when she gets up into those higher rankings. So when you look at her overall hips, it just needs more overall width, more overall fullness to her glutes. I do think that there's a little bit more size that's needed and a little bit more conditioning on the glute and leg area. But I do think with her being as petite as she is and as small as she is, if she were to get any tighter, she might look a little too small, especially next to these bigger girls. And this was a big girl show. These girls were really muscular. So on this one, I would have had Priscilla a little higher. I would have had her a little bit lower. I think she's got a beautiful structure, but needs to fill out the frame more if she's going to want to get that first place win and get that Olympia qualification. I think that it's going to take her a little while longer of building before she gets that. Hopefully she proves me wrong, but I wouldn't see her moving up to that first place ranking until we got closer to the end of the year. Unfortunately, just because of the size that you're going to run into, especially this season in bikini. And in second place, we have Brittany Gillespie. Now, there was a lot of hype going into this show about Brittany Gillespie because she won the overall at Universe a couple years ago. So this is her pro debut after taking a year off. Now, Brittany brings an amazing package, a really, really good package, but it is a very, very muscular package at that. And as I said, this is one of the most muscular bikini shows I've seen. I mean, these girls were besides third place, from first to sixth, were all very muscular girls. If you look at these women that were competing, and you put them in the IFBB 10 years ago, every one of them would be a figure division competitor. None of them would be bikini competitors comparatively in terms of muscle development. They are very, very muscular girls. Now, Brittany is a perfect example of that. She's very muscular, but has really, really good shape. Her shape is it's pretty crazy, pretty insane shape. Now, looking at her physique from a couple years ago, I do think she took time off. And there's a couple of things that I think people make a lot of mistakes on when they get their pro card, is they think they need to take off a whole lot of time to be competitive as a pro. And sometimes they overshoot with muscle when they come back. I've done it myself earlier in my career. I've seen a lot of girls do it and they're like, okay, I got my pro card. I'm too small to compete at the pro level. So I'm going to take a whole, 18 months off, whatever it is, and then make my pro debut. And then they end up too muscular. If you get your pro card, you're most likely ready to go. You got your pro card for a reason. The judges think you're ready to be a pro. I say go right into pro shows right after you get your pro card. They like you for a reason. Sometimes they like a smaller, more petite girl. Look at third place that we talked about. Go right into it, get some feedback, but definitely don't try to, put on so much muscle that you're completely different. Now, with her, she is a little bit more muscular, but she still has that very pretty shape. And that's the thing about her. She has awesome shape. But when we talk about overall muscle, she is an extremely muscular bikini competitor. And when we say muscle, I'm going to give an example. This is, in any other year, this would be more of a figure competitor. Look at her shoulders and arms. Absolutely crazy. I mean, very impressive development, but it is getting to the point where it is not necessarily bikini anymore, and she's pushing the lines. I mean, this is the fitness model division. Remember, we're supposed to just look like, oh, they work out a little bit and they go to the beach. You would see her on the beach and be like, man, how much protein is that girl eating? That would be a girl you'd go up to and be like, what kind of protein are you taking? How guys go up to guys in the gym like, hey, what kind of supplement you taking, right? That is that level of muscle on a competitor. And I do think it is a lot of muscle. And when you get next to some of these bigger names in bikini competitions, it might be just a little bit too much. Now, she does have really, really beautiful shape, and that's going to offset this. But I think she has to tone it down just a little bit in order to climb the ranks and get into that top 10 at the Olympia. But this structure alone is definitely capable of getting to that top 10 Olympia, but you have to sculpt her at this point. You can't just keep pushing muscle, muscle, muscle. She's past that point. So looking at her overall structure, it is just a crazy good structure. It's actually, there's some people who do well with these crazy structures, and then there's some people where the judges, it kind of puts them off. Her, from the front pose, I do think that she should change her front pose a little bit because she looks really, really glute heavy in this front pose. She's really sitting into that glute. I mean, when you look at the actual ratio of her glute, and you're to break this down, you put a line straight through where her lower back is and where her glute starts and to her waist is, it's actually about a 2-to-1 ratio of her glute to waistline ratio. It's about double the size of her waistline. And I think that she's also, because she has such big shoulders, she's putting her shoulders back a little bit and you're not seeing the full width, but I think it actually hurts her to do that. And I think if she opened up her waist just a little bit and put these glutes back a tiny bit, not overpowering her physique, it would be helpful for her. So she needs to pose for balance. She needs to sculpt her physique where it's more along the lines of what they're wanting in full bikini. This will work in front of some judges, but in a lot of judges, they're going to say, hey, you're pushing it a little bit too much. We're trying to keep bikini the entry-level division. This is definitely crossing into the figure shoulders. The glutes are just, they're amazing. And I don't want to hit saying she's not doing great with her physique. This physique is absolutely impeccable. It is just awesome, awesome physique. But is it bikini? It's getting past the lines there. It's crossing the lines, blurring the lines of bikini and figure, especially in that upper body and shoulders. It's blurring the lines of wellness in her glutes from that front pose. I mean, what bikini girl has this crazy of glute in that front pose who does well? It's very, very few people who actually can pull that off and do well in bikini. This looks very wellnessy when you're talking about ratios. Yeah, overall size for the legs is not wellnessy at all. I get that. But when we talk about ratios in that front pose, this looks more wellness than it does bikini. And you have to be careful with how you're presenting it, especially when you have an extreme structure like this. Very few girls with extreme structures do well. But you've only seen a couple of them. Issa would be a good example of someone with an extreme structure with that crazy small waistline, really good shoulders. but it's still balanced. Even though it's crazy, it's still balanced. And this one, the balance is, you're losing the balance just based on the posing a little bit and based on the overall power of the upper body. So she did really, really great. She did second place, but I feel like this physique is going to kind of go hit and miss. Sometimes they're going to like it, sometimes they're not, but there's a way to pose it. There's a way to structure it, the way to tone the muscle down where she's going to be consistent all the time. And I don't think that that's going to happen, but yet to be determined. We haven't seen it yet. I could be totally wrong on that. I know I'm kind of the guy that people are like, oh, of course, Adam says it's too much muscle. If you, when you compare it to the top level bikini girls backstage, she's going to be one of the most muscular girls in bikini. Probably when you talk about people who are going to place top 5 this year in all of bikini, she's going to probably be one of the top 10 most muscular girls, probably be the top 5 most muscular girls in that. And you don't ever want to be the most of anything in bikini. You always want to be kind of right in that middle ground. You want to be good from everywhere, not great from anywhere, right? And from here, she's great from the glutes. She's great from the shoulders, but you want to be good from there, not great from everywhere to the point where you're standing out more than everyone in those categories, because then it becomes the judges start saying, well, is that good or is it too much? Is that good? Is it too much? And you want to take that out of the conversation, because as soon as that starts coming up, you get hit with it, you get stuck with it, it carries on to all the other judges, and then your placings start going down. At first, it might work, but I've seen it happen too many times. So great physique, tone it down just a tiny bit. Presentation's awesome. Adjust the posing a little bit, pose for balance a little bit more. And I think that her placings, if she did all that, could be really, really high. I think that she could be a top 10 Olympian if she controls that maybe even by this year, maybe by next year. But I'm thinking top 10 Olympian. If she did all those things, everything is there for her to accomplish that. It's just a matter of, okay, find these things, get the eye, make sure that the right people are in your corner that can take you there. And these are some common little mistakes that shouldn't be made for someone with this amazing of a physique. So great job. Don't want to knock it, but yeah, got to control these things. And now we go on to our winner, Amy Delgado. There was no surprise that she was winning this show. I was pretty much sure of it going into the show that she was going to win it, and she won almost with a perfect score. In the first round of judging, actually, Brittany got first place from the judges. And then at the night show, she ended up winning with a perfect score at night. So she did lose 1 point just in the morning show. But I am really happy to see her physique. This is the best physique I've seen from her in terms of her overall balance. Last year when we talked about her physique, we did talk about her quads being a little bit too dominant, being a little bit too powerful in that front pose, but they are very corrected now. When we look at the quad here, this was the area last year we were saying it's just a little bit too round, just a little bit too much fullness, and it's distracting. It does cross the lines of bikini being a little bit too muscular. And that's feedback I got from one of the judges as well, that it was like, oh, she's just a little bit too muscular in the legs. And then as the year went on, they liked her overall package. They still thought that was a little bit much, but it wasn't anything that was hurting her. She ended up with 6 at the Olympia. But now there's pretty much nothing to say about that anymore. It is very corrected, very balanced now. You're seeing a lot of just a really good flow to that overall quad. It's very balanced to the rest of the physique. Now she is shorter, so she's more round and full in the glutes. You do see some roundness here in the glutes. That is a little bit overpowering to her physique, but I wouldn't change anything. I think a lot of that is just her stature. I think she's 5'1"-ish, 5'2"-ish, and she just has round, bubbly muscle. From the back, there's definitely no issues there, but the quads, there's no issue with the quads now. The quads, if you look back at the pictures last year, they're a little bit rounder, a little bit fuller, a little bit more dense, but they are very corrected now. You could see she's been doing her homework. She's been researching, looking at her pictures, and she's made some really big corrections. This is an improved Amy. This is actually a pretty scary Amy, to be honest. With her placing 6th last year at the Olympia and her looking better now in terms of her balance. Now, some people are going to see this and be like, well, she's not as muscular in her legs as she was last year. Well, again, like we talked about with Brittany, she's sculpting her physique at this stage. She's no longer building her physique. There's no reason that she needs to build her physique anymore. It's just bikini sculpting. Take a little here, put a little there, take a little away from here, change your presentation, hair, whatever, right? Little tiny things. And she's at that point where she's just finessing her physique. And this is a really, really good package. So shout out to Amy on that. Really happy to see that quad come down. Looking at her from the back, the quad is not this big sweeping quad anymore coming off the side. Last year was a little bit more of a sweeping quad that you saw coming all the way down. Tie-ins still look really good. She's keeping her fullness. Now, again, this is what we talk about. We want full tie-ins without etched tie-ins. You see how there's still fullness, full tie-in line all the way down, but it's not etched in. It's not like she's carved out of granite where it's fully in like you'd see in wellness. You don't want to cross over to that because that becomes too much in bikini. And then you also start getting this deep V here that you don't want to get in your adductor. So she did a very, very good job I honestly don't see a lot of area that she needs to improve on here. I think if she brings this exact package to the Olympia, you can see her placing 5th, 4th, 3rd at the Olympia this year. She is a dangerous competitor. This is a more complete, more balanced Amy. And this is what I was talking about last year. The little holes that you have to see in someone's physique when you have the eye, just the little tiny holes that, you know, maybe not too many other people see them, but the judges, the high level judges, they'll see them right away. So with her, I think that she's pretty close to perfected her physique. It is very, very close. You know, there's always going to be a little bit off here and there. You want to really, really peak for the Olympia. I think she could have probably had a little bit more carbs, been a little bit fuller in this. She looks like a tiny bit, like her body's a little bit tight, a tiny bit tired from dieting, but it's so hard to nail it perfectly. I think that she's probably, her balance is 100% where it needs to be. But I think that her carb fullness on this probably was like 95, 92% of where it could have been a little better, but it was enough to win almost with a completely perfect score. So, hey, hats off to her. But I think she's going to be doing a few more shows this year coming up. She's going to fine tune it, and she's going to bring an incredible package to the Olympia. That's going to be a lot of trouble for people in that top 10 grouping. So I expect her to do really well this year. I expect her to win a few shows, and I expect her to potentially move up at the Olympia this year, at least bring a better package, more balanced package to the Olympia this year, because this is her first show, and she's going to be fine-tuning from here. A lot of people are in trouble with this one. So anyway, that's what I got for the Clash this year. Really excited to see this show. Really exciting things happening in bikini. It's going to be a seat grabber for this year with all these new faces that are coming in, faces that are coming back. We got a few shows coming up here soon, so expect to see more of these videos coming out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.